Hello and Namaste. Welcome to our third chapter on the online workshop on Divine Breath. In this chapter, we're going to be talking about how to use breath as a tool for wish fulfillment. Do you think it's possible? Do you think with just breath you could achieve fame, power, wealth, love, creativity, vitality? Is it possible? Well, let me ask you another question. What do you think is the most important factor in your life? The one most important thing in your life? I have asked this question a lot of times and I have got answers like family. I've got answers like, some youngsters even say my mobile phone. Okay, so this is something they wouldn't live without. But let me tell you that breath is the most important thing in your life. Because if that single most factor is taken away from your life, you will not be able to live for more than a few minutes. So breath, we know, is the most important factor. Now, if that breath is being given to you, do you ever think whether or not will you be able to take another breath? Will there be enough breaths in your whole life? I mean, we are never worried about that. It's something we never think about. It's just natural for us to breathe in and breathe out. Now, if Almighty has given you an abundance of what is the most important aspect in your life, then how do we doubt that we do not have enough of the other things? Have you ever thought, sitting beside other people, do you ever think that the person next to me is taking in more breath than me? Oh my God, what if it takes my share of breath? I need to take in more breath and then accumulate it and keep it in a bank or something like that. Do we ever think something like that? No. If that most important thing, we are sure of getting it as much as needed, then everything else is also bound to happen to you, is bound to shower on you. Only thing we need is to know how to receive those blessings. If I were to tell you that today it is going to rain wishes, and whatever you want, you will be able to get when this beautiful rain happens. So there will be people who will go out with open hands. There will be people who would go out with bowls. There will be people who would go out with buckets. Oh, there was one who told me he'd go out with a whole swimming pool and going to fill it up with wishes. So if we know that how much ever that we want, we need to increase the size of our vessel. The rain is going to be there. It is showering upon us each moment. But our capacity to accept it, our capacity to take it is what is more important. But if we want to increase that capacity, if we want to increase our ability to take in, we have to prepare ourselves to do it. And for that preparation, we need breath. Let us go a little more deeper. And know that since we've been taking this breath so casually, let us see what happens in the universe. There was a time when there was nothing. And then this big bang happened and things started to form, the galaxy started to form, the planets and everything formed after it. So there was a point of nothingness, a point of zero, an absolute nothingness, to a time right now when the universe has been expanded and there are so many galaxies and so many planets in it. And we live on one of the most beautiful planets in this whole world. We also call it a Goldilocks planet. Why? Because it is located at a perfect distance from the sun. Not too near, or we would have been perished by the sun's flares. Not too far away, then we would have been so cold and life wouldn't have been possible. We are just about on the right orbit. We are just in the right place so that water was formed, water gave birth to life, and life gave birth to every other form of life, and here we are today. We waited all this while for a perfect time when life was able to form. So now, if we know that a universe could go from nothing to everything, there has to be a law. Because there can be nothing in this universe which doesn't follow a law. There has to be a system. It cannot just happen on its own. It's not chaotic, although sometimes it might look like that. But we have to know how from nothing emerges one, from one emerges two, and from two, three, and from three, unlimited. Let us take a more closer look towards our body. In our body, there are two things that happen. In a cell in your body, if it has to, because a cell has its own life, it is going to die after a certain amount of days or certain amount of years. And so, to keep on living, that cell has to divide, has to make another cell like itself, so that it is able to live further. That is called division. So that cell splits into two, divides, and another cell is formed. The miraculous part is, even when this division is happening, even when one is being divided into two, these two are not divided. They become entirely a whole cell. Entirely a whole cell. How did that happen? Because if I simply understand this, I had one chocolate. I was asked to share it with my friend. So what did I do? I cut the chocolate into half. I ate half and my friend ate half. So that's called division, right? You divided what you had. So then I had a whole, but because I divided, I got half. But in nature, but in your body, this does not happen. When you divide a cell, half is there and other half miraculously appears. So if I were a cell and I were to divide, then when I do this division with my friend, I would still get one chocolate and my friend gets one chocolate. Very, very interesting. Now let me take this even more further and know what happens when two come together. We saw how one formed another. So there is one forming two. Now let us see when two come together what happens. But when do these two cells come together? We have a father cell and we have a mother cell. When this father cell called a sperm and a mother cell called an ovum, they come together, the most miraculous thing in the world happens. It is the beginning of forming a new life. Now, these two cells came together. They mixed in such a way that this third cell that is formed is neither a copy of this nor a copy of this. It is an entirely individual being with its own abilities, with its own power, with its own things. So it's a different entity. Now these two, meaning a father, because when you talk with me, I generally refer to the father qualities as fa, because it's a shorter word. Then a mother quality is ma. So you'll be hearing these words quite often where I talk to you about fa and ma. Fa is father and ma is mother. Very simple to understand, fa and ma. When this fa and ma come together, they form this unique third entity which becomes a consciousness. Which means when the generation has to go further, when you have to take a leap of faith, because you do not know what will happen in future. We have a certain lifetime. So we're going to live for 80 years. I might live for 80 years, right? But what about a time when I will not be there? Is when my next generation, say my son, is going to be carrying forward that lineage, is carrying forward that knowledge, is carrying forward that genetic inheritance and going to the next generation. So it will be a time that I will not be there. But I take a leap of faith right now. So I have a child whom I will prepare, I will give the knowledge, I will make ready for the time I am not there. So this is a unique ability for the two to come together, make a third, and third will go into the future. So this is knowledge, this is our genetic inheritance which will go forward in its own unique way. It is not going to be an exact replica of the father or the mother. It's going to be a unique child. We have to know this. We have to know that in spite of being my child, that child has also got a divine consciousness of his own. He or she is going to be in a unique way, has got to have his own outlook in the world, which is better. Because understand it as, let us take an example of an iPhone, right? I had an iPhone 5 a few years back. Then came the iPhone 6. Now what happens when there is an iPhone 6? Is it an exact replica of the iPhone 5? No, because then nobody will buy it. So the technology improved. It keeps on improving as the generations go. So iPhone 12 that is available today is much more efficient and much more better than what it was in the original days. So meaning a generation is going forward, is going towards betterment. In the same way in us, if we have the next generation, it has to be a better of us. It cannot be the same. It cannot be like in the past. It will be in the future. We have to understand this and take into consideration how this Fa and Ma works together towards betterment. Let's go further and see. So we're talking about this nothingness transforming into this everythingness. And let me also talk to you about, since we are on this topic of Fa and Ma, how do we relate to this Fa and Ma apart from genetics? Because whenever if you're talking to me, I would somehow get a reference of the body, because this medical thing is kind of in me, and I will always give you a reference of the body and what's happening in the cell. But let me give you an example out of it. Let us take this example of electricity. We use it day in and day out. Now in electricity there are two parts. So first is called the Fa part, the electricity itself, the electricity, but it is static. It does nothing unless a magnetism is applied to it, which is Ma. When Fa and Ma come together, it develops a force, and when that force is developed, it creates the power to function. Meaning, when that Fa and Ma come together, and when I plug into using that Fa and Ma, I could charge my mobile, I could run my mixie, I could even charge my car. That is the Fa and Ma that we apply today. Let us go even further and see how abundantly there is this understanding of Fa and Ma in different cultures. Like in China, they understand it as yin and yang. In India, we call it Shiva and Shakti. But there is an interesting parable in India. We understand that Shiva is like Shava. Shava means a corpse, lifeless. Unless Shakti is applied to it. So even Shiva needs Shakti to perform. So Fa always needs a Ma to bring in a workable force, to bring in an action, to bring in some result. So that is what Fa and Ma are important to us. In our body, where are these Fa and Ma? There are two very important parts in our body without which we cannot function. One we know, the brain, and second we know as the heart. So your heart and mind, when they come together, when they align in a manner that is in synchrony with each other, is when you can go forward. So in our body, we need the Fa and Ma to be the heart and the mind connection, the heart and the mind harmony, so that we can work towards a result. Now, in our body, another Fa is in our breath. Because interestingly, we have seen that in our nose we have two nostrils, one the right and one the left. What you can do is, I would want you to put your hand like this in front of your nose and then just blow out. And then check which nadi or which nostril is working more powerfully. There will always be a time when either of your nostril is more powerful. But every 2.5 hours, there will be a specific time when both are working in a same manner. That is the time every 2.5 hours that we have where we can change our potential. Meaning, if our right nostril is working, we are more relaxed. We are more concentrated on creativity. When your left nostril is working, you're more concentrated on rest, you're more concentrated on inactivity. Depending on what work you want to do, we should activate that nostril and it can give us immense results. We can always try that, because in yogic test it is said that if you can control your prana, the pranayama, then you can bring in happiness, you can bring in wisdom, you can bring in creativity, gratitude, balance, everything in your life. So we have to focus on how this balance of Fa and Ma within our body, through what? Through our right and left nostril, the Ida and the Pingala Nadi, so that our heart and mind can come into a balance, so that we can work in a way we can get results where we want. Now those results are dependent on you. I cannot tell you that you have to work on this way. Yes, because our yogic texts were made a few thousand years ago. Those were the times when lifestyle was different. People needed a different thing from their life. For that time, spirituality or being affiliated to a religion was very important. It was a huge aspect of their life. Today, things have changed. My goal might not be to become a religious person, or my goal would not be to go towards spirituality right now. My goal would be to get success. My goal could be to get more progress in my career, to do well in my studies. Maybe my goal could be to do well in my relationships, to do well in getting a financial security in my life. My goal could be anything. But I can use the power of breath, the balance of the Fa and Ma, to bring my heart and mind into a harmony and to get what I want. And let's go further to the next chapter and see how these things can be achieved. Thank you.